civil lawsuit for the tragic and deadly mass shooting at the Club Q nightclub 2 years ago. Victims and their families are represented by the Chicago-based firm of Romanucci Blandin, including founding partner Antonio Romanucci, who is not able to be here with us today, senior attorney Patrick Beaver, and senior attorney Sarah Raish. Romanucci Blandin is honored to advocate for victims of mass shootings, including those at the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, the 4th of July parade in Highland Park, Illinois, the Old National Bank in Louisville, Kentucky, the Route 91 Harvest Festival in Las Vegas, the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, and others. Additionally, attorneys Brad Buffkin and Matt Schneider of Buffkin and Schneider law firm represent one of the injury victims, and they join us here today as well. The law firms are working collaboratively, and the complaint filed on behalf of their client was also filed yesterday. I'd like now to introduce Attorney Patrick Beaver.
Thank you. 2 years ago today, the tragic mass shooting at the Club Q nightclub in Colorado Springs shattered lives and left an indelible scar on the LGBTQIA community. The gunman brought terror and trauma to what should have been a safe space for the community. Today, Romanucci Blandin announces the filing of a civil lawsuit in Denver federal court against government officials and Club Q for their respective roles in the preventable mass shooting that occurred on November 19th and 20th, 2022, claiming 5 lives and injuring 25 others. The shooter had previously stated that he had plans to conduct a mass shooting, making this tragedy both foreseeable and preventable. The lawsuit seeks justice for the victims and their families, holding those responsible accountable for their failure to protect the community despite clear warning signs and foreseeable risks. The lawsuit underscores that this tragedy was not an unavoidable act of violence, but the result of systemic failures by those entrusted with safeguarding the public. Government actors failed to act on clear, credible warnings about the shooter's violent intentions, choosing to prioritize political opposition to the red flag law over public safety. Club Q management ignored its duty to provide adequate safety measures, despite the well-documented risks of targeted hate crimes against the LGBTQIA+ community. These failures created the perfect storm, allowing a dangerous individual to carry out his deadly plans. The lawsuit is about accountability, not just for the victims and their families, but to ensure that no other community has to suffer from such reckless disregard for human life. The civil complaint was filed this past Sunday, November 17, 2024, in the U.S. District Court of the District of Colorado, on behalf of plaintiffs Adriana Vance, on behalf of her late son, Raymond Green, Tanya Beal, on behalf of her late daughter, Kelly Lovey, Julia Rumpel, on behalf of her late son, Derek Rump, John Residiano, John Carlos Del Valle, Ashton Gamblin, Jericho Lovell, Anthony Melberg, Charlene Slaw, James Slaw, and Brianna William. Defendants named in this lawsuit are the El Paso County Board of County Commissioners, El Paso County Sheriff Bill Elder in his personal and official capacities, GIG Incorporated doing business as Club Q, Club Q LLC doing business as Club Q, 3430 North Academy LLC, Academy 3430 LLC, and Club co-owners Matthew Haynes, Kenneth Romneys, and Nicholas Grisega. I am honored to work alongside Antonio Romanucci, founding partner of Romanucci Blandin, in pursuing justice for these victims and families. The complaint alleges that government officials in El Paso County, including Sheriff Bill Elder and the El Paso County Board of County Commissioners, failed to invoke Colorado's red flag law, a tool specifically designed to prevent tragedies like this one. Despite credible and alarming warnings about the shooter's violent threats, access to firearms, and intent to harm, these officials refused to act, following an unconstitutional and reckless policy of non-enforcement of the law. Colorado's red flag law was enacted to save lives by allowing law enforcement to temporarily remove firearms from individuals who pose a serious risk to themselves or others. By willfully refusing to enforce this law, despite overwhelming evidence of the shooter's intentions to commit a mass shooting, government officials abandoned their duty to protect the public, enabling this devastating attack. I'd now like to turn it over to my fellow attorney, Sarah Raish, who will discuss the claims against Club Q.
Thank you, Pat. Our lawsuit also asserts that Club Q's management and owners, including Matthew Haynes, failed to take adequate security measures to protect guests from foreseeable harm. Despite the known risks faced by LGBTQIA+ venues, particularly in light of the Pulse nightclub shooting and other targeted attacks, Club Q drastically reduced its security measures and failed to implement security staffing. Club Q advertised itself as a safe space, but that was a dangerous illusion. Rather than increasing safety and risk management measures after Pulse, Club Q ownership cut back security and cut corners on security measures. They failed to provide armed protection and failed to implement industry standard security measures, including metal detectors, pat-downs, external security, or monitored surveillance. They had only one security employee on staff, and that employee also worked as a bar back and as a food runner. And not only was that employee woefully untrained in security measures and emergency preparedness, so were the rest of the employees at Club Q that night. The building itself lacked basic security measures, including proper exit doors. They were blocked. Club Q's management consistently prioritized profits over people, leaving its patrons vulnerable to this horrific attack. This case is not just about compensation, it's about justice and systemic reform. We demand that government entities enforce existing laws like the red flag law to prevent similar tragedies. We call on private entities, including LGBTQIA+ venues, to implement robust security protocols that prioritize the safety of their patrons. In addition to the other clients, or to the individuals that Pat mentioned, I would also like to thank additional individuals who are here today on behalf of those that passed away. On behalf of Kelly Loving, Tiffany Loving is here, and on behalf of Derek Grump, his sister Julia Kissling is here, as well as his aunt Millie Laporte. I'd also like to ask attorneys Brad Buffkin and Matt Schneider, who represent an additional victim and filed their own complaint, to come forward to say a few words. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Matthew Schneider from Buffkin and Schneider Law. We're a Colorado Springs-based law firm. I work with my partner Brad Buffkin, and we have the honor and privilege of representing Barrett Hudson, who was one of the victims of the Club Q shooting. On November 19th of 2022, Barrett was president of the Club Q in Colorado Springs when the mass shooting occurred, which targeted the local LGBTQIA+ community. Mr. Hudson was shot 7 times. Miraculously, he was able to escape the club, jumped over a couple fences, and made his way to a local convenience store, where he awaited emergency transport to the hospital. Today, 3 bullets remain in Mr. Hudson's body, and they will remain there for the rest of his life. Like the bullets, the physical and emotional scars will remain for a lifetime. Mass shootings in our country are far too common. They are the result of systemic failures on multiple levels. The case that has been filed on Mr. Hudson's behalf cannot make him whole. It cannot make him into the person he was prior to the shooting. Our hope is that it can be an instrument to effect much needed change within our community and society. The claims Mr. Hudson brings in this case largely mirror those of the other victims. I'm not going to give a lengthy to copy what Mr. Hoover and Ms. Reich just stated. But we have bring claims of substantive due process, negligence, and willful and wanton conduct against the Board of County Commissioners of El Paso County and the former El Paso County Sheriff Bill Elder. We're bringing premises liability and negligence claims against the Club Q entities and their owners. We have also added assault and battery claims against the shooter, Anderson Aldrich. I believe at this point some of the victims would like to speak.
Yes, thank you. We'll move into comments from the people who matter most. We're going to begin with Ashton Gambler.
I'm really sure. My name is Ashton Gambler. The last few weeks, I've been going through my Facebook, and I can see everything that I posted 2 years ago. This has been weighing on me heavily because I was preparing for my husband to return home from a deployment, holding down a maid household, working multiple jobs, and still caring for our pets. Our lives forever changed on November 19th, 2022. I find myself not only struggling with what happened, but with everyday life as well. I don't work much. But thankfully, I have a job that does understand my limitations. I can't drive, and I can't cook by myself. I can't even take my dogs for a walk. I struggle with doing things that I once found enjoyable. With recently, I went with my mom to a concert. And the band kept using pyrotechnics to make random pop sounds throughout their set. After about 5 or 6 songs, and going through the embarrassment of people staring at me every time I would yell and try to run off, I finally ran back to my mom. My mom helped cover my ears and did the best she could to warn me every time a pop was going to go off. I wanted to leave, willing to skip bands that I have waited since I was young to see. And I lost any enjoyment that I had during that show. After we returned home, my mom had to help me around the house, seeing just how much that I struggled to be a functional adult with a deployed spouse who thankfully is now home. And I don't know what to say to emphasize that things will never be the same for so many reasons. I went from being the person who could hold her own while her spouse was gone to being absolutely terrified every time he leaves. Because what if I can't open my drinks or get help cooking? I recently had friends drive from across town just to take my trash out. As you can see from the most basic tasks to the most significant fields of safety and critical things like mental well-being, physical health, and the ability to take care of yourself. This tragedy has forever changed my life and the lives of everyone who is here today. There must be accountability and justice, and this can never happen again. And to additionally add, I really think that El Paso County and everybody else needs to accept their responsibility.
Charlene Small, most of you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Charlene Small, and I'm a survivor of the Club Q shooting. I was shot multiple times that night, the night that changed my life forever. It's been 2 years since that tragic event, yet the pain and memories remain as vivid as if they were yesterday. The reality of living after such a tragedy isn't something often talked about. The journey afterwards is anything but easy. Since then, I've gone through many surgeries, months of physical therapy, and a long road of recovery. Physically, I've come a long way, but the emotional scars are much harder to keep. There's still many moments when the weight of it all becomes overwhelming. There have been countless nights where I've cracked myself to sleep, moments where I've felt completely broken, hiding my pain because I want to show up strong. But the truth is, those moments remind me of deep vulnerability that lives alongside resilience. There's a profound loneliness that comes with carrying trauma like this. One that's hard to explain and even harder to share. I now face triggers that I never would imagine I had. Reminders that bring me back to a time when my autonomy and independence were stripped away. I remember what it felt like to wonder if I'd survive. These memories don't just disappear, they're woven into the fabric of my life now. A part of my story that cannot be erased, and it's a reality that I'm still trying to come to terms with every single day. As time goes by, life moves forward for many, but for those of us impacted, within our community, we are still here. We are still mending the pieces of hurt that were scattered by this hateful act. The scars I carry, physical, emotional, and mental, are a constant reminder of the trials I had to endure to stand here today. I often wonder why it happened, especially when signs were present. Signs that could have raised alarms, signs that showed this could have been prevented. I thank you for your time, remembering, and for standing with us.
James Slaw will be our next speaker.
Good morning. My name is James Slaw, the brother of Charlene Slaw, and this is my husband, John Thomas Blandin. All of us present at Club Q, all of us survivors. First and foremost, I do want to thank you for being here today, but ultimately, I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about something that's overlooked with media coverage of a tragedy such as Club Q moves on. And that is what it's like to live through the everyday aftermath of a tragedy. For many of us, this isn't something that simply gets better with time. It's something we carry with us in countless ways every day. Consistently, one of the hardest things for me to live with now has been the hypervigilance and the anxiety. In any public place, I'm always checking for exits, assessing where I can go if I need to, and watching the behaviors of those around me for something that might feel off. Crowded spaces, places that used to feel normal, are now filled with anxiety. It's hard to feel fully comfortable or safe, and that feeling changes everything about how I move through this world now. Harder still are the nights. Often I am woken up by nightmares, gunfire explosions that sound so real to me that I'm jolted awake. Sometimes horrific dreams of being in the same or another mass shooting accompanies those sounds, and when I wake up again, sleep isn't always an option. These dreams are a reminder that even though life goes on, the trauma of that night never fully leaves us. This is a small sliver of the reality that survivors like us live with on a daily basis. Long after the media has moved on, it's why I'm here, to share that surviving doesn't mean it's over, and to remind everyone that we need ongoing support, understanding, compassion, and justice as we navigate life in the aftermath of a tragedy. Thank you.
Attorney Brad Buffkin will speak on behalf of his client.
Our client's name is Barrett Hudson. Due to circumstances outside of his control, he has spent the last 2 years of his life in constant pain, fear, and anxiety. He moved to Colorado in 2022 because he wanted to be in a peaceful, beautiful environment and wanted to have the possibility of moving to a new place with new opportunities. When he decided to visit Club Q, he had intended for his night out to be brief. He had only been to the bar for around 30 minutes before he prepared to leave, and as he did, he heard what sounded like several balloons popping in rapid succession. He laid on the ground for what he estimates to be around 30 minutes before help arrived. And in that time, he listened for what felt like an eternity to the passing sirens of emergency services. He tried calling his friends and family. He told his dad he loved him. The firemen came to his aid first, then police, before an ambulance arrived. His clothes had been cut from his body. After reaching the hospital, he was placed on a metal gurney and laid staring at the ceiling in the hallway, waiting on help, not knowing if he was going to live or die. He lay there unable to contact anyone to tell them where he was or to say his final goodbyes. He was scared and covered in his own blood and couldn't even call the people he loves. He asked several hospital staff if he would live or die, and no one could give him an answer. He was certain he was going to die. How could he not feel like the system failed him? Mr. Hudson has 3 bullets in his body, and they will remain there until the day he dies because it's too dangerous to remove them. His life is now prescriptions and doctor's appointments. He is constantly made tired by tasks he used to take for granted. Laundry hurts, sitting hurts, playing with his dog hurts. As a result, he's constantly sad and angry, feeling like his life is at a standstill. Prior to his move, he worked construction with his father with hopes that he could one day return to that field. Now he can't do the familiar work he loves anymore because of constant pain in his back. Every ache and every sharp pain is a reminder of the presence of those 3 bullets inside his body. Every ache and pain is a reminder of what he saw and experienced that night. Because he can't work, finances have become a frustrating aspect of his life. Were it not for the support of his father and his family and his closest friends, he would be in an even worse circumstance than he is now. Mr. Hudson has no way to generate income because of this experience. He has no way to support himself the way he once did. Financial burden on him and his loved ones has become great, and the weight of the stress on top of the trauma from that night makes everyday life incredibly hard to navigate. Following the shooting, Mr. Hudson couldn't even retrieve the rest of his belongings. He was told that everyone's personal belongings were seized and nothing was ever labeled or organized. He notes that, quote, "We were shot like fish in a barrel, and our belongings were just thrown into a pile together, which speaks greatly to the lack of respect shown to me and the other victims of this egregious crime." Had one man's hatred not been combined with the negligence of people in positions of authority, Mr. Hudson would not be in the broken state he is in today. While he's grateful to be alive, he is a survivor of a heinous crime that has changed his life and shaped his future. He will never not hear a gunshot when he hears a balloon pop. He will never not think of the unknown dangers when he's in a bar or a crowded place. He will never be the person he was before the shooting took place. And in Mr. Hudson's own words, "My peace, my time, and my future were stolen from me. And there's more than one person to blame, and that's why I'm here."
Thank you. Our final plaintiff to speak is Adriana Vance on behalf of her son Raymond.
Hello, everybody. My name is Adriana Vance, and I am the mother of Raymond, who was killed the night of November 19, 2022 at Club Q. I love my son, and he loved me so much. I know his death was not to destroy me. Even though I'm experiencing profound loss, I have found faith in my lowest point. I know that we are not supposed to outlive our children. Raymond had hopes and dreams that he wanted to accomplish. We as a family had plans, and Raymond's death just stopped me right in my tracks. So much of what I knew theoretically, all of a sudden had to become real. I had to take everything I had learned in my life, everything that had been presented to me, and utilize it, or I would not have survived his loss. I continue to go through real true agony. It's difficult to honor yourself and to try and stay in a state that you can begin to receive. But if you're in a complete state of chaos, what can you receive? From day one of this horrific life-changing trauma, I tortured myself through the nights before I actually saw him lying in a coffin
looking as though he was sleeping peacefully. In the back of my mind, I kept saying they have someone else's son. They don't have my Raymond. My Raymond, he's gonna call. But when I saw Raymond's body, that denial went away very quickly. I knew he was gone. I saw him and I touched him and I kissed his cold body. He was gone. After that day, I would wake up in a state of terror, and I still do, just not as much. I still feel anger, and my heart is not mended. Guilt comes up often, wondering if I had only done this, if I had only done that, if I had given him this, if he had that. All that continues to run through my mind, and those are the things that led to agony. People say time heals, and to me that's so cheap. It's just a cliche. I just think back to the joys of the times we spent together and the memories from pictures I have hanging on my walls. I also have Raymond's dog, who has become my best friend, and his dog is so spoiled. He lives like the king Raymond would have wanted him to. My grief comes in waves similar to a tsunami, and other days waves of calmness, but still waves, and I have learned to surf them. God has given me the acceptance, the strength to know it was impermanent. My suffering is impermanent, and it will end someday. If I could share anything with another mother, it would be that yes, you're totally shattered. Yes, you're cracked wide open, and what are you going to do? I believe if you can truly accept that your life does have meaning and all the events in your life have meaning, that even the horrific becomes an ability to grow. God never promised that we wouldn't face loss. God promised us that he would never leave us or forsake us. Learn to get in touch with the silence within yourself and know that everything this life has a purpose.
The attorneys will now take any questions.
Can someone speak to the Board of County Commissioners' culpability in reviewing this? We stuff with sheriff's spell out clearly.
Sure, so the question is about the Board of County Commissioners' culpability in this horrible tragedy. The Board of County Commissioners in 2019 passed a resolution. That resolution, Resolution 19-76, states that El Paso County is a Second Amendment preservation county. And as a result, they decided not to enforce state law and cleared their election of their duty. They passed this resolution after a public hearing where many concerned residents voiced safety concerns, including residents saying, what will happen if there's a tragedy? But despite these clear safety concerns, despite notice that what they were doing was wrong, they still passed this resolution.
Isn't the red flag law really on the sheriff?
The El Paso County Board of County Commissioners is the entity that is responsible for the county. It was the county's decision, and it was passed by El Paso County Board.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What about the decision to sue Bill Elder personally and go to the sheriff's department? Why did you make that decision?
We made the decision to sue Bill Elder personally because we think it's important to have personal accountability for the wrongful actions and inactions that led to this terrible tragedy.
So why not the sheriff's department as well? Why did you target them?
We didn't sue the sheriff's office because we are not able to sue the sheriff's office.
Why not?
The law doesn't allow us to sue subdivisions of municipalities.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions, excuse me.
Briefly, you mentioned other cases that you guys have represented in Chicago. We've seen
It's a great question. I wish we could learn lessons from these. I wish we could stop these horrific acts from happening. One act that comes to mind is the Parkland school shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. There, the shooter exhibited some of the similar warning signs as the shooter here. Law enforcement officials couldn't act because Florida didn't have a red flag law. 23 days after that shooting, Florida has a red flag law. And law enforcement officials throughout the state utilized it. So I wish Colorado and I wish El Paso County could have learned lessons.
I see that you've covered other issues before, or let's say other occasions. On a personal level for you, why is it important for you to be able to take up these cases and represent families?
I think that the law is an important tool for justice. And what happened here is incredibly unjust. And we want accountability for the wrongful actions and inactions that happened here.
Is there a monetary damage you'd be willing to share, or does each person ask for a certain amount of money? How does the damage work?
We are not asking for a specific amount in monetary damages at this time. The monetary damages will be determined at trial by the finder of fact. Thank you.
That concludes our press conference. Thank you so much for attending. And thank you again